I'm Alex, treasurer for the Review of Art and Literature.
I'm Haley. I am the assistant editor of the Review of Art and Literature.
Hi everyone, I'm Jonna. I'm sort of a general member and I'm also an artist.
And I'm Faith and I am editor-in-chief. So what is everyone's medium? So what is your medium of choice?
Primarily poetry for me.
My medium of choice would definitely be short stories and fiction writing, but what I have in the art gallery is a photograph, which I also like to do as well.
I use just about everything under the sun. If you think you can make art out of it, I probably use it.
And I mostly do poetry. I do some short fiction here and there. And how did you guys get started in your medium? When did that first start happening?
Well, if we're going to go back to when it wasn't good, which is when it usually starts, that would be 5th grade. But when I actually started getting like more into it, it was like, oh, this is something I want to keep up with, would be somewhere around high school. And then it just kind of stuck from there.
I've been writing since I was like 8, and it started with writing like children's books on my Microsoft Word desktop computer. I would just write little children's books, and I've been writing ever since, which is crazy.
As cheesy as it sounds, my mom used to drop me off at like the little Y at the big Y, and they would have like coloring contests, and I think that's really where it started. Where I would just like enter into a coloring contest there while I was waiting for my mom to finish shopping.
Oh, I ended up on the spoken word side of YouTube, and I would just like watch these people spit pieces, and I was like, that's so cool. And then I just started writing poetry. I never got to the spoken word side of it, but I just wrote it and I loved it. And just carried on. What purpose does your creativity serve you? So is it like you're trying to spread a message? Is it just a hobby, a stress reliever?
I'd say like looking at the poetry aspect, it started as like a way of like releasing certain emotions that I didn't know how to deal with. And then as far as stories go, it's just whatever I think is cool, and then I wrote it down into a thing, and there's some messages in there that I've just stuck with.
For me, it very much started as just something to do, but as I've gotten older, I've liked to write what I like to read, or if there's something that I want to read and it hasn't been created yet, I like to write it myself. So if I read a story and I would have written it a different way or done a different ending or something, I would take inspiration for that and do my own thing with it. So now I kind of just do it for myself and for me to know that like I can do some cool things.
I would definitely have to say that it's for stress relief, but also to get across a message. So like a lot of my pieces of artwork have like 2 different perspectives you can take, and I kind of like have that so that each person that looks at it might get like a different message from it, but it really has like multiple different ways that you can view it.
I'd say I'm similar to Alex. I kind of go from like my own experiences. I usually use it as an expression as well to just like whatever I'm feeling or whatever's happening in my life at that time. I feel like I draw a lot of inspiration from that as well. And taking from reading different artists and different poets' work helps me get information and inspiration on like different techniques and all that jazz. Where do you guys get your inspiration from?
So go back to what Haley said is, sorry, lost it. Is like looking at like things that I enjoy, like a lot of like different pieces of like writing that I have like, or different pieces of media that I've consumed as well, like podcasts, movies, comics, like all that kind of stuff. It kind of goes into the stories that I want to tell, and just gets me thinking like, oh, what do I want to do differently, or what do I want to do in the same way?
Yeah, same with that is I like to take a lot of inspiration from a bunch of different writers that I read and kind of mix it all together. Either that or sometimes I just get like one really like creative poetic line and I just like imagine it and I'm like, all right, there's my starting point, and I just kind of like do it as it comes.
Nice. So the same as y'all, but more like in a visual representation of art. Whenever I visit like, museums, anything like that, I look at sort of like how art has changed over time, and I try and incorporate different pieces, even though a lot of my art's more like modern and abstract. There's still like pieces like sprinkled in from history or like political statements, things like that.
So you're sitting down at a table, on your desk, on the ground, wherever you like to do your work. And what do you have? What's there? What are your materials? Any aesthetic things that kind of like get you in that space?
So here's the funny thing is I have a lot of journals and it's a problem. Like a lot of unwritten journals. And I have also over 1,000 notes in my phone where all my writings actually are. Because usually I will come up with something on the fly and not have a nice pretty journal with me, and if I do, I don't want to ruin it because it's like a rough draft and this isn't worth a rough draft. As far as aesthetics go, tea and cottagecore would be a way to describe how I want to make my writing.
I use my laptop. I always type all of my stories up on my computer. And I drink a lot of tea, hot tea, rose tea, so that's that.
So I use just about every medium, but the other night I was working on a piece, and in my room there's not much space because you know we're at college, and I had to kind of like piece together my space. So I didn't have like something to put down on the ground to keep the space clean. So I took empty trash bags that hadn't been used yet and taped them together. So it's kind of just like stuff like that, like anything that's in the room that can be used to make the art, like I'll just like throw it in there. Like I use like the back of the pencil to make certain marks, that kind of thing. Just kind of like spur of the moment. Throw my headphones in, listen to some really like moody music. Like I don't know, if I'm feeling sad, maybe listen to some sad music. Happy, listen to some happy music. Throwback, no, nostalgic.
I like to have a cup of tea as well. I totally love tea. And I'm usually sitting at my desk, but a lot of times I'm wherever I am on my phone. Like, I just thought of something, so I'm just like anxious and typing. Which kind of sucks sometimes because like I'm trying not to forget what I'm going to write about, because it just like comes sometimes. But I do like to sit with like a candle. It's really nice, you know. I really like that. So in those moments when you guys are getting ready, you have your tea, you have your trash bags. What's your creative process? Is there something, do you have any habits, any rituals, or anything like a starting place where you're like, this is ready first? And how does it carry out from there?
So sort of like you said, it's always like a spur of the moment, like panic sometimes, at least with poetry for me. It'll be like 1 or 2 lines that's like, oh, that's a good rhyme. And now I'm like, I'm repeating that and trying to keep that rhythm with me because more often than not, if I'm like in the shower or something and I can't write it down now. So you're just trying to keep that with you and then getting it all out and hoping it's perfect and then going back and trying to like fix that rhythm. As far as trying to write goes, it's like just trying to like get into the right headspace, like a big like short story or something like that. Because that's like, you have to kind of step back and remember like, it's not always going to be at the most exciting moment like poetry is. It's going to have like some ups and downs, so I have to get in that headspace.
Yeah. I think the most interesting thing about writing is there are times when you really want to write, but you sit down and in 1 hour you write like 4 sentences and you just can't do it. So I was doing that the other day and I was like, yeah, no, I need to take a break. So I took a shower and I just relaxed and then I went back. In 30 minutes I had like 3 pages. And like sometimes like you really just need to like be in that headspace, like Alex was saying. But I kind of like to just let it flow. You can't force it, or else it's going to sound forced or seem forced. So I think just the biggest thing is if you recognize that it's not the time, or that you can't focus, or that nothing's coming to you, like let it sit for a bit, come back to it, because you will have that time, you know.
Yeah, I completely agree with everything you said. For me, starting like the creative process before I even like pick up my art supplies, I take out like a little sketch pad, or I have an app on my like laptop, and I'll start drawing out like ideas, and then all of a sudden, boom, inspiration will hit me, and that's when I jump to my tape trash bags and start to, you know, actually create, not like sketch. And like you said, if it's not the right time, it's not the right time. You really have to like feel it in the moment, and when you're in the moment, it'll just happen. Sometimes I'll like look down, I'll start working, I'll look up and it's like 7 hours later. And I'm just like, what happened? You just like get in that zone.
Yeah.
So kind of going off of that, if you had like a deadline or a class that you were in where you had to have a piece ready, how would you, say you weren't feeling that, how would you go about sparking that for yourself? Like, I have to get this done, so then I'm gonna do, you know?
If it's art related, this is so backwards. If it's art related and I have a deadline for it, I am more likely to get it done. Because now there's like something like motivating me to do it. Whereas I've been like wanting to write like this huge book since like high school, and I have like, I don't know, 10 pages of it done. Because there's no deadline except for the ones that I create. So like being unmotivated to do something, that's a constant uphill battle for me. But I will usually try to like find things that I've collected that do motivate me, like certain songs or stories that I've like watched that like sparked a big set of inspiration for me, and try to get back into that and see if that'll get the ball rolling.
Yeah. I think it's important to kind of like manage your time properly. So like if you have time until the deadline, kind of like give it a bit, like look at it, think about it for a bit, come back to it if you're not feeling inspired. But I've found that like sometimes if I just find out about something I'm very interested in it, I'm like, no, it's not due for 2 weeks, so like I'll do it later, but then I'm not interested at all again after that. Like I think if you're feeling that motivation, even if you have something else to do, right, like it's good to kind of get that start because you could lose that inspiration. But in terms of like having a quick deadline, like you need to get it done, but you're just really not feeling inspired, do something that does inspire you. Like I said, I went and took a shower because like I could just kind of relax and clear my head and just think about it in a way where I didn't have to like sit down and write, you know. For those like whatever 20 minutes, I was able to think about it, but be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do, and then it kind of just clears your head, and you can kind of go back to it, maybe change the scenery, go into a different room, do something else, drink a different flavor of tea or something. Like I think there's ways to kind of get your inspiration back, and it could be as little of a thing as like taking 5 minutes to listen to your favorite song and kind of hype yourself up to do it or something like that.
You just hit like everything I was gonna say. Sorry, like smell. Deadlines honestly are like horrible, I think, when you're trying to have the artistic process happen, because it doesn't just happen to everyone. The one thing to think about like is that artists in the real world all have deadlines, whether you're a writer or you're a muralist, if that's what they're called. They have a deadline that they need to complete things by, and sometimes you have to force it a little bit. But like Haley mentioned, like try and like mix things up, do something you are passionate about, try and like get you in the mood to make and create, and kind of just like go from there. Kind of hit like everything.
No, like just to jump in, like for example, I had to write a short story like 2 days ago, and I was not into it at all. And then I went and I started doing this embroidery thing for a few minutes, and like I did that for like a half hour, and I was like, I'm so motivated now. Like I was just so productive. Like let's get, and then I banged out the story. Like it was great.
Honestly, also interjecting there, like that's a good way to get motivated too. Is like to just like make something, even if you just like do like a dumb doodle of like a stick figure. It like reminds your brain that you can create things.
Oh, let's do it.
Yeah,
This feels so great.
it gets you back into that mood.
Yeah.
Sometimes me watching like other people do things too also gets me motivated. So like I'll go on like Instagram, go to like, I don't know, the explore section, and that's all art because that's all I watch basically. And I'll just like see someone doing something like really cool and interesting with art, and I'll be like, wow, I need to get there. Let me go to like, you know, I feel like inspired from watching other people create.
Yeah. I feel like for myself, whenever I'm like, I have to write more, I don't talk to myself, guys. Like,
No, I love it.
yeah, and like, I'll just talk about like what's going on, what am I trying to say, is there a message I want to send, like, what do I want, what do I feel right now? And I'll usually come across a line as I'm talking to myself and be like, oh, wait a minute, there might be something. Yeah. And so then I just kind of build from there, and I just like calm myself through it. So I love doing that. For each of you and your mediums, is there someone that you look up to, someone that really inspired you? Yeah.
As far as like artworks and stuff go, so many. Like anything that I've ever like hyperfixated on for like a month, week, or a year, it, like that is like everything that I write is like just a hodgepodge of all those things, and it is so I can't even name one. There's just so many.
For me, I've had a professor, Professor Crutchfield. I've had her for 2 different classes now, and for some reason, every time like I'm taking her class, whatever, well they both in short fiction classes, whatever like short stories she picks are always just so good. And every time like her class is just like inspires me and kind of like reinforces like the love that I have for writing. So like I've never read her writing or anything, but she picks really good stories for her classes. So I think it helps to like kind of be in classes that spark that interest as well.
So there's so many famous artists out there that I've drawn like inspiration from, but I would say the person that's probably inspired me the most is my grandma. So grandma, if you watch this, she's an amazing oil painter. The things they came out so realistic. They're all over her house, and every time I go over her house, I find a new detail that I didn't see before. So just getting to spend that time with her to like get that inspiration, her to tell me all of her techniques and all that like cherished time is probably what inspired me the most to become an artist in some way.
Awesome. I agree with Alex completely. Kind of like a mix of things, especially like when I pick up something and I read a word and I'm like, oh, I really like this. Like I want to try and like, I want to use some of this. That definitely inspires me a lot. But I have a family friend named Cindy. Hi, Cindy. And she teaches. She's a professor at a college back home, and she also travels the country and she reads her poetry. And so I just remember like hearing about her talk about it when I was younger, and she would come over and she reads my work too, and like she'll give me feedback and tips and kind of like uplift me and my abilities and stuff. So I feel like she really inspires me to keep going and try new things. So, yeah.
We love Cindy.
Yes,
We love Cindy.
As college students, do you guys find that it's difficult to take time out or to purchase materials and things like that?
Yes to both. As stated earlier, it's hard to find time, but it's also hard to motivate myself as well. So it's like give some, take some. Because any free time you have when you're really busy really makes you just want to like keep that to yourself. Even if you want to do something you enjoy, it's like, oh, but like I could just do nothing for once in my life. And also, like the older you get, the more you realize how expensive art materials are. They are insane, and an art store near my house was going out of business, but I'm kind of happy about it because it was on sale. So.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It is hard to find time just because also too I'm an English major, so I write all the time for every single class, and that's what I do. So it is hard sometimes to kind of flip off the switch of reading and writing for class versus reading and writing for enjoyment. So I think it is important though to carve time out to be like, yeah, you know, I have a story to write for class, but that's not what I want to write about right now, and that's okay. So I'm going to write about something I want to write about. And then there's that inspiration spark we were talking about. So once you do something else similar and you get that feeling of satisfaction, you can then go back to it. So I do think like taking time for like creative relaxation is nice, but it is hard, definitely hard to come by as like a college student.
I would also say yes to both. The one thing that I found that helped me this semester is that I'm actually taking an art class, which it kind of forces me to make art. But the way that it's structured here, at least for this class, has been very helpful because we get to work on art that we actually feel inspired to make, instead of being told like paint this, do this, draw this. So I've definitely been helping this semester to take that time, but in previous semesters it has been very, very hard to like find time and like give up our free time to create art. The second question, what was the second question?
Is it like hard to purchase materials?
Oh, yes, yes, of course, yes. Art is so expensive to make, but I think that's the thing that most people don't realize is that you can make art with just about anything. Say you have old pictures, tag them up, see what you can make, because literally anything in this room can become art. You just have to have the vision for it. So like, try to step outside like your comfort zone. Even like magazines, old books. I know we did a really fun activity in the creative writing class we took, where we took a page out of a book and blocked out some of the words in order to create a new poem. What is that? Erasure?
Yeah,
erasure.
Yeah.
And that's just a way, you know, to create with stuff you have available to you that doesn't cost anything extra. So just kind of like opening our eyes and seeing how like anyone can create with anything.
Yeah, in the review we often do found poetry. So
Yeah.
we cut up old books and put the words together to create something new. Yeah, but I'm also an English major, so I write a lot, and sometimes I'm just like, not today. I'm not.
I need a nap. I need to go do anything else.
Yeah, anything else. Do you guys create your work for yourself or like, just enjoy this hobby? Do you promote it? Do you post it? What do you do?
I mean, yeah, it's like a hobby, but at the same time, like my goal since before college has been like, okay, I'm gonna get a job that like makes me money, but I'm also gonna try to write a book because like a book and a podcast, maybe a second book, maybe a third one. So yeah, but like technically, yeah, it's a hobby because that's not what my major is. What else was there to that question?
Just like, do you sell it? Like,
Yeah, post and sell it. I wish I sold it. That'd be nice. But no, I do like post about it. That's what I try. It's been a little scarce lately, but the reviews probably been the closest I've gotten to actually getting my work out there again. Which is nice. It feels nice to do that again.
Yeah. For me, a lot of the writing I do is for classes. Unfortunately, like a lot of the short stories I do are just ones that I kind of have to write that I end up loving writing them. So I run them in obviously for that, but then I like to submit to the review, but I don't post them or anything. But my goal, like Alec, is I want to write a book of short stories. I think that's really cool. So that's like my ultimate goal.
You should definitely post your short stories somewhere because they're amazing.
Okay.
I remember the one we wrote at the end of the last class.
Yeah, it's in that book.
It is fantastic. 10 out of 10
Oh,
recommend.
thank you.
But I would have to say I do promote my artwork. I do it mostly for myself, but then I find that I like just have like a collection, just like in a stack. And I feel like if they have like a forever home other than my home, then they should be there. So I do sell my artwork, except for the ones I'm very attached to. And I do post them on my Instagram. And I kind of like found that my followers, they like to see the process, because a lot of people don't understand, like, they're like, oh, I can't do art, I can't do this, I can't do that. And I'm like, no, like, anyone can do art. Here's the process. I'm like, it's really just like fluid. It's all up to how you do it, your space, your creation, like anything's art. So they really like to see like the process of how we do it, and that's like actually kind of easy, like anyone can do it. So yeah.
I submit to the review of my literature, which everyone should do. I've also put some poems in the Westerner, but other than that, they stay with me. I read them to my mom and my dad, and sometimes she'll like she just put one on our wall at home. So like our poems or my poems stay between us mostly. One time when I was in high school, I did submit to like a magazine somewhere in the country, and I just never did it again. Sometimes, I don't know, sometimes I'm like, oh, like, it's good to me, but like, I don't know if it'll be good to other people, and like, I kind of feel like a little insecure about that. Do you guys ever feel like, oh, like, it's good to me, like, I want to share it, but what will other people think, or like, a little bit of imposter syndrome, do you guys ever?
The second you have to hit that submit button, it's like, well,
It's like, is it good?
are there 30 typos I overlooked?
Yeah.
I'm always looking at like my work and I'm being like, no, there's that imperfection there and there and there. I'm like, it's not good. No one can see it. And I'm like, I'll come back to it. So like, it takes a while definitely for me to feel like something's complete and finished and like final.
I think another thing too is like you have this vision of how you want it to look in your head or how you want it to sound in your head, and you don't know if you fully translated that onto paper. So a lot of times you'll be like to my friend or to me, can you read this and like, can you tell me what you think about this? And did you get it? Like, what do you think about this character? And like if they kind of get the gist, I'm like, okay, I'm just overthinking it. So I think it is very easy to overthink your work, especially things that you put like all of your effort into. Because then eventually it all seems so familiar to you.
I will always test my work with someone because at that point you've looked at it throughout the entire process. You've looked at it from the moment it was in your head to every like mistake you've made. So that's all you're seeing. So like when you bring in someone else to like test it real quick, it's just kind of like a, hey, fresh eyes, please tell me if this is good.
Yeah.
So you talked about like, having other people see it, give that second pair of eyes to see if they can point out the stuff that you're trying to reveal in your work. Do you guys find that you have any specific themes that come up a lot in your work, or things that you like to touch on, and things that you like to share with other people?
I really like using metaphors. Like I would use them in the weirdest ways. Like in one of the books I'm writing, the seasons is one that I really like to play around with, like correlating to like different emotions. And a lot of the settings like will take place in like the fall or the spring, which is weird because those are like seasons of change. But in my head, it's written as like a happier moment. So it's like one of those like interpretations, kind of like how like Edgar Allan Poe would always use like red instead of black for death. It's just one of those like, oh, why does the artist specifically see it this way? What's different for them? So that's a little tangent, but.
For me, I really like the idea of doing something that is heartfelt or like heartwarming, but also heart-wrenching. So it kind of goes both ways, where you just like feel. And I really like the idea of when you read something and you just feel it like in your gut. And whether it's powerful, whether it's happy, whether it's sad, like I think that's the craziest part about like the writing process as a whole. So like I feel like whenever I write things, they're just very powerful in that sense, because that's what I like to read. So I think whenever I get feedback when I work, I'm like, wow, that was a lot. And I'm like, but in a good way, right?
Yeah, right?
So I feel like my work is always really heavy, which is fine. I love it. That's just kind of like my style is like, let's get deep, really quick right here. Yeah,
Good.
that's what I like. That's what I like. I like getting in there and getting in people's heads and making that kind of thing.
We like Pixar for a reason.
Yeah, seriously. Yeah, I'm like the same way. I like people to think, so a lot of my art has the viewer like question what it is, and some of the themes that I have been really into recently is, feminism. So a lot of my artwork pictures women in different ways, especially how like society might perceive them, which isn't always right, isn't always fair, but it really gives the viewer the opportunity to think about that and to question how they view that in society, and if society is fair in that judgment. And then the other thing that I also feature a lot is mental illness, and the same thing. A lot of people don't understand that it is serious, it is real, but again, it is deep, and it really gives them that opportunity to think about the different ways that mental illness can be perceived. So what you see on the outside versus what is actually happening.
I like to write about emotions. I've been told I'm a very emotional writer. And I feel like I really like to touch on all the different emotions and kind of like write on those and what that experience is like for people and like what people need to go through. I heard a quote somewhere, I don't know where, that I love. And it's that the human needs to feel the entire spectrum of emotion. So the highest highs and the lowest lows. And I really like that because I feel like people, we all love to be happy. Everybody wants to be happy. And we chase it, but it's in those low moments sometimes too, where you feel like you're most, got true humanity kind of come out in you, So I like to explore on that spectrum of emotions and everything. So the final question, how does creating make you feel?
No, like, no, seriously. Every time I do it, it's like a part of me like is reminded like the reason I want to do this is like in the hopes of sending it out to people that are like-minded. Because like that's always been like my favorite thing about like writing stories or poetry is that like you're not the only one that's gonna get something out of it. Even if someone who reads it doesn't view it the exact same way as you wrote it, they're still like getting something out of it. And it's just like a way to connect a bunch of strangers to one single point, and I love that.
That's like really cool. I like that a lot. I really like the idea of exploring human relationships, and not just like romantic relationships, but I like a lot of like platonic relationships. So for example, I just wrote about like a guy in the relationship he developed with like his mailman over a few months. So like very, can't think of the word, but unlikely relationships and like things that form like that, because I like to make people think and reflect on themselves and like things about themselves they can kind of see with other characters or identify with other characters and learn from. So I like writing about a bunch of different things because I like hope one day that I do like publish my work and it gets, you know, out there, that people can read my work and be able to at least identify with someone somewhere throughout it, and then they can kind of see themselves within it.
I would definitely say that my art makes me feel everything. Like literally everything. Happy, sad, mad, confused, like any emotion. I've probably felt it while making art. But I think that's part of like the process. You know, you need to like really like reflect on yourself, and that's what's gonna come out.
Yeah, totally. I feel whenever I finish a project, I feel like relief. I feel like sometimes it's something that's building up, like, oh, like I need to write about this, like this needs to happen on paper. And so whenever I'm done and it's like I know it's done, I'm like, I can breathe now, you know. But yeah, that's all the questions that I have today. So thank you. Thank you. That was great. I loved it.
Good talking.
Did you still want to do the personal interviews with their artwork?
Yes.
Okay. Is it just these guys?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what we're gonna do is since we only, yes.
Oh.
Yeah, you can stop recording.